Now that we know that deep bonds are built in emotional moments, let's look at an analogy to teach us how to deal with these emotional moments. Imagine your child is walking through the park on a chilly day when all of a sudden the sprinklers come on and start to soak them. They are very surprised and immediately want to just get out of the situation. This is very similar to when our kids are emotionally upset.
So there's three parts of the brain: the primitive, emotional, and logical. So when our kids get upset, this primitive brain takes over, and the primitive brain is good at fighting and running, but what it's not good at is thinking things through.
Knowing that our kids are not capable of rational thinking while in the sprinkler of emotions, does it give us some good ideas what not to do when they are in this state? Let's look at some examples using a very similar analogy. Let's say it's you and your friend are walking through the park on a chilly autumn evening. You are the character in red, and your friend is the character in purple. All of a sudden, the sprinklers come on all around you. What if your friend grabs your arm right then and starts to problem solve? We should have noticed the running sprinklers in the other part of the park. She might have great advice, but now is not the time. Your primitive brain is activated and all you care about is getting out of the sprinkler. And you probably aren't very happy with that friend for suggesting advice right now.
Solving another person's problem for them is usually not the right goal and can be hurtful. Your goal shouldn't be to solve, but to emotionally connect.
Oftentimes, when our kids are caught in the sprinkler of emotions, we give them advice or problem solve. If they are upset about a lost toy, we might say, "Put your toys away next time so they won't be lost." This may even be good advice, but because their primitive brain is in control, this advice isn't going to feel good and hurts the bond between us. Back to you and your friend on that chilly autumn day. What if your friend grabbed your arm and started getting defensive? What would be going through your mind? You probably don't care whose fault it is, you just want out of the sprinklers. When a child is in the emotional sprinklers, their primitive brain may fight, and we may get defensive. If they are upset and complain about not having enough toys, we might say, "You don't have enough toys? I've given you tons of toys." Getting defensive is normal and understandable in these situations. But since the logical brain is inactive, the child won't really hear your arguments. Back to you and your friend. What if the sprinklers came on and your friend grabbed your arm and told you it's not a big deal? Well, maybe she doesn't care about getting soaked, but that doesn't mean you don't. It's a big deal to you. You might even think that this friend doesn't really understand you very well. The same minimizing messages can get sent to our kids if they are in the sprinklers about a broken toy and we tell them, "You're overreacting, it's just a broken toy and you have lots of toys. It's nothing to get upset about."
So when that primitive brain is activated, everything feels like a big deal. And if we tell them it's not, then they feel like they're bad at feelings and we don't really understand them.
Minimizing another person's feelings will often make them less likely to come to you for support. This could harm your relationship and the deep bonds that you formed with them.
Back to you and your friend. What if your friend actually criticized you after the sprinklers came on? "Why didn't you tell me the sprinklers came on every day?" Criticism is rarely a good idea, but it's especially hard to hear when the primitive brain is activated. There is a temptation to criticize our kids when they are caught in the sprinkler. For example, if they come to us upset about a scrape, we may say, "You wouldn't get hurt if you watched where you're going." We feel like it's our job to constantly teach them, so we may criticize while the primitive brain is active. Back to you and your friend on that cold autumn night. What if your friend started to tell you all the reasons why the sprinklers were right to come on at that moment? They have to water or the grass will die. That probably wouldn't feel like they cared about you that much because they weren't on your side. The same is true with our kids. If a child is upset because a friend wouldn't play with them, we may be tempted to say, "Maybe you did something that made Jack not want to play with you." But when someone's primitive brain is activated, they really need the ones they love most to be on their team.
When someone comes to you upset, they want to know that you're on their team, that you're in this with them.
Have you ever caught yourself doing any of these things? I know I did. These analogies show us what not to do when our kids are in the emotional sprinklers. Next, we'll look at what we should do.